Welcome to Fireside Chat. It's a series of curated conversations as part of the DataValues project. The DataValues project is a policy consultation and advocacy campaign aiming to unlock the value of data for all. My name is Bett, and I'm a policy manager with the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data. My guest for this Fireside Chat is Gbenga Sesan. He is the Executive Director of Paradigm Initiative, an organization that works to connect underserved young Africans with digital opportunities and ensure protection of their rights. Gbenga is based in Nigeria, but joining us today from the Web Summit in Lisbon. The focus of our Fireside Chat today is to understand or have a conversation around inclusion and participation in data. I'll go straight to my question, my first question. Gbenga, can you pinpoint the event or circumstance that made you realize you needed to put a human rights lens to your work on data and technology?
Thank you, Karen. As you know, I continue to do my work at Paradigm Initiative to train young people. I focused a lot on training, on connecting them with opportunities. But at some point, I met a policymaker who, said to me that if I wasn't interested or if I wasn't happy with the way the law was, I should change it. And I thought that was very interesting, so I, then began to pay a lot more attention to policy. And in paying more attention to policy, I realized that a lot of the work done by many governments, across the country, where Paradigm Initiative works, and in particular in Nigeria at the time, there were many issues that bordered on no regard for the data of citizens. And in fact, in some cases, there were outright violations of citizen rights. And so while I started to look at policy, I realized that definitely we need to pay a lot more attention to rights respecting policy. And so, there about 2008, about 13 years ago, was when I started, paying a lot more attention to making sure that rights are at the center of the digital experience.
Thanks. When you talk about rights, you're also talking about the right to choose to participate or not to participate. And I want to just hear from you, Gbenga, what might be the drivers for people wanting and also not wanting to be included or to participate in data?
Okay, let me give you a perfect example, a personal example. Nigeria insists that for me to continue to use my mobile phone now they've extended the deadline again to December 31. I must register for a national identification number and then connect that number with my biometric information to my mobile registration, which also has my biometric registration. And as a person, I've said I will not do that. I won't do that because I personally believe that a country that does not have data protection laws should not be collecting 6 or 7 different kinds of biometric data for citizens. So that's my reason for not participating, for not opting into that data. There are consequences. I know my phone will get cut off completely, but there will be ways around it. But the reason why many others don't participate could include, information asymmetry, where they don't have exact information that they require to understand the benefits of participation in that data process. And in terms of why people opt in, I use Google services, even though I know that Google is not the best of representation when it comes to how much data is collected. And Google collects too much data, obviously. They feed on my data. The entire business case is on all the data points, they're able to collect and all that. But I use Google Drive, right? Google Maps to drive. And that's because at times we opt in to use services that may collect even too much data because we weigh the benefits versus the consequences. So if the benefit is I won't get lost, and the consequence is that my data, I may just give too much more than I'm supposed to give of my data. Thankfully, I can go to the back end, my history.google.com, and avoid being tracked in some cases. But guess what? There will still definitely be as much data of mine that is being owned by either a platform. Some people go on Facebook because their friends, all their friends from secondary school, from high school, are there. Some people choose to use Instagram because they have to archive their pictures. So people have this value versus loss kind of weighted experience before they choose to participate. And at times we don't participate because we choose not to, because the consequences are too much, or because people just don't have enough information about the benefits of participation.
Just picking from your point, Gbenga, around the benefits and the risks. Tell me some of the trade-offs really. What risks might people expose themselves to if they choose not to be included? And what about if they choose to be included?
If you choose to be included, some of the risks include your data being manipulated or being lost or being misused. If your country has data protection laws, lucky you, you can then report and seek redress. If your country doesn't, well, you can still, find a legal basis to be able to do that. In fact, Paradigm Initiative and 27 other partners came together to start what is called Reporti, RIPOTI.Africa, an online platform where you can report violations, including data privacy violations, and one organization or the other will then go to the back end and help you seek redress. Now, if you choose not to participate, then one of the consequences could be, well, FOMO, fear of missing out. You may not be sure of what you're getting or what you're not getting. But the other would be that because we're now increasingly in a data-driven society, there are things you may not be able to participate in. I mean, a very practical example is there are people who believe they shouldn't get vaccinated against COVID. I believe you should. So if you don't get vaccinated, for example, you can't board a flight to some countries. If you don't want to get tested to have the negative COVID result, you won't be able to get on a plane because then you're putting everybody at risk. So that's sort of the same thing. There are times when you make a personal decision not to participate because you believe it benefits you. But in some cases, not participating could also mean that you will miss out on a few things.
Thanks. I think my next question is really trying to think about solutions. Or, in your view, what needs to change to ensure that inclusion and participation is genuine, and who needs to act to ensure this?
So to make sure that participation is genuine, it has to come from two ends, right? Or maybe even three, depending on the kind of service. So it has to come from the user, it has to come from the service provider, and it has to come from the person providing oversight. In most cases, government through regulation or policies and other frameworks. But for it to be a genuine experience, there have to be some basic things. And one of the most basic things is trust. I must trust you as a service provider, even if you're the government, that the data that I'm giving to you is going to be used for the specific purpose that I said it should be used for. And if you tell me that my data, for example, if you're traveling, you send a lot of documents to airlines, airlines will tell you that we've deleted it after using it to process your travel because we're not allowed to keep it. Now, that's because the law in that country talks about purpose limitation. Data purpose limitation. You must not keep data beyond the period for which you need to use it. So these are some of the things that need to be in place for me to have that kind of confidence and to be sure that this means well.
I think you touched on three ways. I feel like you've touched about on the user and the legal aspect. And what about the other things that need to change for genuine inclusion?
Well, we have to definitely stop planning for people without them being there. A former Nigerian politician of blessed memory now, MK Abiola, used to say something. It sounded funny at the time, but it makes absolute sense. It says that you cannot shave a man's head in his absence, right? You can't say the man, we've shaved his head, but it's not there. I mean, you have to go to the barber. You have to be present for your head, for your hair to be shaved off. And what we do is we actually try to shave people's hair in their absence. We plan for them. We make policy decisions. We make design decisions. We design products without asking them if they will use it, how they will use it, when they will use it, and even if they will use it at all. So to make this meaningful and to make this proper, we have to stop the savior mentality of I've designed a product I think you will need. This is the new digital product that you need. Excuse me, I don't need it, right? So but we have to stop this top-down approach to policy making, to product design, and even to civil society designed programs. We have to make sure that whatever we are designing is for a specific purpose and for particular people or stakeholders. And if we're designing for them, they have to be involved. They have to have agency. They have to have the power to decide whether they want it and how they want it.
Yeah, agency and power has come up a lot in our conversation. There's a point you've mentioned previously, Gbenga, in one of your talks, that everyone is an activist, and I'd like to, our listeners to maybe understand, what do you mean when you say that everyone is an activist when it comes to data?
Everyone needs to become the thing that we need more. I borrowed that phrase from Chimamanda, by the way, the popular Nigerian author, who said everyone should be a feminist. And the reason for that is because if we don't assume the role of being able to fill the gap where it exists for feminism, for example, and tearing down the patriarchy, we will outsource that to a few feminists and say that those are the people that should do it. It's the same thing, for activism and advocacy. We cannot outsource all of our advocacy to other people. We all have to fight the fight. We need activist judges, we need activist policymakers, we need activist parliamentarians, we need activist, businesses, we need activist, individuals, we need activist companies, because the way that things are at the moment, there's so much abuse of rights that is going on, that the new normal will be one where rights are abused with impunity, which means that to reverse that, we need a shock therapy for the world system. And that shock can only come from when you see that everyone, literally everyone you meet, is an advocate for rights, including even people that you do not expect to be advocates for rights. Imagine that a business that is supposed to be collecting your data and making money from it then says to you that before you sign up to this on this platform, you have to agree that your data belongs to you and the design is such that your rights come first. You're going to be shocked, like, okay, what's going on here? Do they really want to make money or not? But that's where we need to get to, because when they do that, they earn my trust. When they earn my trust, they have my money.
Very powerful, Gbenga. And I think when you talked about the new normal that we're in, I'm trying to paint a picture of the next world, or the world that we are, looking at maybe in the next coming years. And for you, what does an ideal world with regards to data use, digital rights look like for you?
An ideal world for me will be one where businesses, governments, individuals, including, of course, civil society, where we're already doing the work, will make sure that rights are at the center of our design. When governments begin a new program on collecting data, the first thing they do is to talk to the citizens about how the entire life cycle of that data, and then ask them, is it okay if you collect this data for you to get this value? And if they say it's okay, then they can design with them. Same thing with businesses. You're not going to design to turn me to the many, to turn me to a data point and use me to make money. You are going to make sure that my rights are protected first. Of course, the benefit of that is that if the gig economy is then built on trust, because it's built on trust, really, since the gig economy is built on trust, I give you my data for something in return, and I trust that you will not use it wrongly. And that way, if my rights are at the center of the design, it means that businesses have changed in terms of their model, not necessarily their model, but their approach to data use. And it's the same thing, when civil society organizations and other, actors then plan activities, we then plan that first, not on behalf of people, but with people and with rights at the center of the design.
Thanks so much, Gbenga. Do you have any additional things you want to add to this conversation?
Just to say thank you, Karen. I enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that my dream of the future is not one the future is not going to be 100 years from now, but the future is going to be 2022 at the latest.
Yeah, that's a really strong parting shot that the future is quite closer than we think it is. It has been a real pleasure hearing from Gbenga Sesan, the Executive Director of Paradigm Initiative. As mentioned, Paradigm is an organization that works to connect underserved young Africans with digital opportunities and ensure protection of their rights. Thanks for joining us, Gbenga. This has been a Data Values Project Fireside Chat. Follow the conversation on social media at hashtag DataValues and subscribe to our YouTube channel to keep up with new Fireside Chats as they're released.